Well, hey everybody, this is Arvermill47 coming to you from Dallas, Texas, making this video on August 4th, 2011. My current time, which is Central Time, is 11:02 a.m. Okay, I just thought it was probably important to go ahead and put a video out about the solar activity. It's ramped up very fast in the last 3 days. We've had 3 M-class flares in the last 3 days. We've had this one on August 2nd, which was a decent one, but I mean, well, anything into the M is decent. Then we had another relatively strong flare on in the middle of the day on the 3rd, and then overnight last night we had the strongest one yet, which was an M9.1 or a 9.3, I believe, 9.3. Okay, this is some pretty good solar activity. In fact, probably the strongest we've seen finally in solar cycle 24, which is finally doing its stuff. Now, looking at the proton flux over the last few days, again we see when we had the flare on the 2nd, it was a proton flare, but a weak one at that, not that big of a deal. The one that happened on the 3rd didn't disturb the protons too much. Last night's was a significant proton flare. In fact, I believe it caused an S2 radiation storm. Protons are still elevated. The heavy-duty protons are dropping off at this point, but I will show you something in a minute that kind of points out how strong the protons were, although I've seen a lot stronger. But again, a very decent proton streamer going up on this chart, showing the intensity of that flare that happened last night about 11 o'clock or so my time, Central Time, last night. Okay, here is the SOHO coronagraph. This is the C2 instrument, and you'll see a couple of coronal mass ejections as it begins here. We see that one, which it was a decent coronal mass ejection. Here's last night's flare. Wham. See all the sparklies on here? I call them sparklies. I'm sure there's a nice technical word, which really there are. Those are the protons I talked about. When protons are flung at the camera on the spacecraft, it's like noise. It's like radio noise. And when you see that many, it means it's a pretty strong protons that are being shot out from that actual sunspot. So again, a couple of proton CMEs. That first one did a little there, then this latest one is wham. So there you have it on those, and both that was a halo CME. This one looks to be very much halo CME, which is very much Earth directed. Okay, this is an animation. It's called the Sigma streamers, and Earth is the yellow here, and this is again an animation of the coronal mass ejection and the forecast points of where it will be at certain times. And it looks like the coronal mass ejection should arrive here at Earth probably around August 5th in the morning sometime. Now I'll show you some stuff on space wind telemetry here in a second, but again, this is a cool thing to look at just to see what the actual forecast is. The rest of these you see were solar coronal holes blowing out, but then we have wham, and I can tell you that this one is going to come and probably do a pretty good geomagnetic storm on us. Looking at the magnetometer aboard the GOES 13 spacecraft, actually it's GOES 13 and 15, we see what I would consider the calm before the storm. Yesterday there was not much magnetic activity. Prior to that there was not much. As you can see, we did have a slight geomagnetic disturbance happen early in the day on August the 2nd. Well, when this next CME arrives, either a combination of all three, or maybe two waves. It's still hard to tell on that. We're going to see this like somebody just rang a bell, hit a gong, and rang the bell, and you're going to see this just go crazy. And when that happens, we're going to see the K-index jump high. Right now it looks like the forecasted K-index for a coronal mass ejection of this strength and this Earth directed could be in a magnitude of a K7, which is a moderate to almost severe storm, but it's a moderate. It's not really a severe yet, so I don't want to do that, say severe. But it's going to be a very strong geomagnetic storm. And as I watched some news this morning on our different channels on that come from satellite, I can tell that the satellite folks are in the process of like adjusting their satellites to get ready for a decent geomagnetic storm. I've watched it over the years happen. There's no obvious way to tell except for the fact that reception gets kind of spotty occasionally. And no, it's not a problem with my cable or my satellite. I notice that whenever any satellites begin to get ready, they do have to do maneuvers to prepare for incoming coronal mass ejections like this that will cause potentially above K4 and possibly a K7 this time. We'll see. Here's a look at the induction magnetometer. Now this is a ground-based magnetometer based at the HARP facility in Kokona, Alaska. Nothing exciting or abnormal showing here based on what we watch all the time, but I expect to see some as soon as this CME gets here and we start seeing our ionosphere and magnetosphere start getting agitated. We're going to see probably some interesting stuff on this chart, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Okay, and this is the other SOHO chronograph. This would be the C3. Yeah, C3, I believe. Detection unit. And again, Mercury right here. So again, this is not the one we can see Elenin coming in on. That would be the stereo behind, and I believe it's the COR2, which is quite interesting. And I think the folks that are starting to pick up on that and show us some videos, check out anybody's videos that are showing the Elenin coming in now. It's going to be quite interesting. To tell you the truth, I've not been overly concerned about it just because it's kind of been in the back of my mind, but there's a lot of things that come together, and it seems very interesting as to what Elenin could possibly mean for us here on Earth as far as what it could affect. Anyway, back to the current situation, which is more at hand. Elenin will be more than likely to bother us beginning in next month, probably. But right now, the concern at hand will be an massive incoming CME, which the energy may accumulate in this CME from all three released over the last 3 days by 3 M-class flares, the last being the strongest and the one that had the most protons in it, which meant it sent out a lot of solar radiation. So that's going to be our first area of concern, because geomagnetic storms in the past, very, very strong ones, of course, disrupt satellites, cause high frequency radio waves to be downgraded. It can causes communication problems, mainly in the fact that we have to move satellites around just to keep it also can mess up GPS accuracy by a lot sometimes. The ionospheric effect will be where the ham radio operators will have to deal with this. The other thing is the pretty aspect of it is that auroras could be quite extensive when we have this geomagnetic storm, especially if we see K indexes up to 7, then definitely high latitude sky watchers will be looking for decent auroras, and if it happens to be even stronger than we think right now, we could even see some mid latitude auroras, which of course are always a treat. Of course, I'd take any kind of treat here in Texas, since I'm going on 34 days of over 100 degrees, and it was 111 yesterday, and it's supposed to be 111 again today, and it's just awful, but I don't need to whine about that. The one other thing I wanted to mention is that we may see increased earthquake activity, because that is a theory that's out there, that when our magnetosphere it gets hit with one of these and it shakes and rings, then it also affects how the earth shifts and sets. And there's been some pretty good correlations of earthquake activity associated with solar activity like this. Even just when we've had coronal holes that have spewed out high-speed stuff at us, solar wind, that has caused earthquakes at certain latitudes. This is one of those that this affects all latitudes. So any area that may be ready for an earthquake, this could trigger it. Now, I say anywhere that's ready. I mean, we don't know whether they're ready or not, but any unstable area could be agitated by this. So earthquakes and volcanoes will probably be on the uptick, and someone else has put out a video too showing that earthquakes have indeed been on the increase, or should I say major earthquakes, magnitude 6 and above, have been on the increase now for the last several years. And that's what Ellen concerns me about, is that what's causing the increase in earthquakes. Anyway, okay, I rambled on long enough. Haven't done a video in a while, so I guess I just had to really get into it and start talking about it. But once again, heads up folks, a decent CME, strong solar flare, and there looks like there's more activity about to rotate around from the eastern limb of the sun. So looks like it's going to be an active couple of weeks, if not longer. Finally, again, solar cycle 24 gets its act together. Alright, y'all take care and have a good one.